friends of our channel be welcome. Try to watch the videos in sequence because the information sometimes is complementary. Answers of an Alien from Andromeda, 20th video, February 5, 2011. Question: Mythy, some are saying that the geographic poles are already reversing. Apparently the Sun and Moon are coming totally out of position patterns lately. What is really happening to the planet? They are two different things. The reversal of polarity of magnetic fields is caused by the passage of the planets of the solar system to the lower hemisphere of the galactic plane. The angle of the axis of Earth's rotation is being changed by the approach of Nibiru's system. Your references relating to the Sun, Moon and other celestial bodies are visibly changing position. The higher the approximation, the greater the tectonic movement, and the unbalance of the weight of the Earth's crust causes the axis of rotation search a position that balances the whole, with respect to gravitational forces of the system. The Earth's axis will only find its final position after the passage of Nibiru's system, because only when it differs from the system, the equilibrium forces of the planets will find its stable point. Until the Earth back to the point of rotational equilibrium, it will become extremely unstable, ranging up to more and less, to finally stabilize at the new reference point with respect to the Sun. That will be very different from the angle of current reference. The equatorial region of the planet may include Antarctica. There are many variants to calculate, depends on the tectonic movement, that is almost unfathomable in its entirety. We have an accurate survey of all that is happening dynamically, but will depend on numerous interactions of forces in the passage of Nibiru's system, because it may lose some of its planets in this passage, changing any previous calculation, cause it will also become extremely unstable. Imagine a heavy ball spinning in space, pierced by a long rod that represents the resultant vector of gravitational forces of the solar system. If you shake either end of that stick, the ball will lose balance, and begin to wobble on its axis of rotation. The system Nibiru is messing with the lower end of the stick this time. When passed, will attract the ball, causing it to swing further, and will stir with the upper end of the stick when going through the apex of its orbit. When returning, will do the same in the reverse way, to stand back and fail to influence the ball. After some time the ball will recover the balance, stopping to shake and stabilize in the best position to interact with the system. What will determine the final position of the rod with respect to the system is the concentration of surface mass of the planet, the density of the masses in its new tectonic rearrangement. When a celestial body rotates between gravitational forces, its largest concentration of mass will always be in the equatorial zone. In the specific case of Earth, you have a very large moon, and it is a big factor in helping to balance speed and is a great weight variable in the equation of equilibrium, since it raises large amounts of water in its tangent, making with which the weight is distributed differently on the surface. It will have a role in the final position of your axis, depending on where the oceans are after the tectonic movements. As you can see by all the variables exposed, which are only a small part, is a huge equation. Question: Steve asks, you give us permission to share confidential information with NASA scientists involved in any of this research? Steve, NASA has much more knowledge of technological detail than you can imagine. We cannot start a debate of technology while the Earth is not considered a suitable society to certain developments. Even the reptilians, with all intentions of sharing the planet, may not provide technologies that will lead your government to slaughter. They are creating a dependency on technology, but, in a smart way, not to fall foul of the planetary organizations like the Community Galactica. We realize that your governments are extremely corrupt and elitist, due to the fact they have already several technologies that could advance the level of development of your people in 100 years in their deposits, and are not intended to use in this current context. So, we're prepared and looking at what will be on their agenda, set aside for your population. We believe they want to be the saviors of a new society, after all the expected events, and can create a new society without the constraints imposed by themselves, nowadays. Question: Mithy, I have this film of an autopsy performed more than 50 years ago, involved in many controversies about its authenticity. Is this real? Yes, it's real. These beings are humanoids that live in colonies on planets orbiting Rigel and Taurus, our close neighbors. They are not greys, they have physical constitution more like the Pleiadians, Earthlings and myself, but has no body hair and is shorter stature as me. They are always on research here on Earth. They had 2 accidents catalogued some time ago, with no survivors. It appears that these photos is a female who died in the second accident, which did not have a definite cause, on the North America. The first accident was on the Caribbean island of Martinique, in 1902 and denotes a volcanic activity. They are an advanced race in science and especially focused on planetary archaeology. Question: Steve asks, what your body matter is made up of, and to what proportions? Steve: our body is humanoid like yours. All humanoids and reptilians have a very similar proportion. Normally approximately 60% is water. Chemically speaking, the proportions vary according to the environment of each planet, but on average we have approximately 60% nitrogen, 26% oxygen, 10% carbon, 1.9% nitrogen, 0.4% calcium, 0.25% phosphorus, 0.1% potassium, 1.35% other minerals. Question: Steve asks for an example of other alien life and what their body chemistry is made up of. Steve: there are various forms of life adapted to very adverse conditions of environment. Both low temperature extremes such as high, ultra-high pressure, and poisonous environments to the standards of animals and plants, in general. There are so many combinations that we would be arguing for hours, perhaps days, discussing this subject. Are billions of micro and macro organisms having a composition of what you call as the genetic code, completely retrofitted to other chemical compositions. If a body cannot find calcium for its structure, adapting what exists in the environment, as crystals and other minerals, silicon dioxide, and sometimes metal particles. There are also many entities that use energy and high-density plasma to form and develop their structures. These structures can feed photons and other ionic particles to physically grow in places where there's nothing available, like the open space. Question: Steve asks whether you are aware of NASA research into this, and whether NASA has been assisted by ET in providing us with this evidences? Steve: eventually NASA and your government has long since received a lot of alien technology. Energy converters based on the nitrogen with no operating cost, programming technologies, molecular forms of life with adaptive genetic code to consume materials that are considered pollutants to humanoids, synthetic life forms considered by the standards of humanoids, that can metabolize organic material and minerals, among many others technology transfers. Some of these things were obtained by re-engineering tools and equipment seized from crashed spaceships. Other technologies were exchanged for biological material, and features such as operational bases of underground constructions, for the reptilians and their greys. See, when I say their greys I'm referring to a specific race of greys that work with them, please do not generalize. It's like good and bad societies that you have here, in your own planet. Question: Mythy. Some regional events such as deaths of birds and fish without an official explanation is happening early this year. You know why? As you know, food chains are chemically manipulated by your government since they began spraying the air. Birds and fish are the first to feel the effects of infestation by nano-elements. The decline in the food chain is a technique to keep people dependent on what your government can meet, in relation to subsistence food. These events must be multiplied by all the areas where your governments are seeding your atmosphere. If you have nowhere to go or what to eat, will inevitably have to go to the areas predefined by your governments, to contain the masses. There they will decide on who should live, and who shall die and be buried at the sites, which have also been predetermined by them. Only one thing can prevent the choice is made by your government, nature itself. The natural processes of rearrangement of the planet will take care to clean and prepare whole regions and continents to the new context. They know this, but they are anticipating for the case of nature being benevolent with some areas considered essential for them. You should be prepared for this year. When Nibiru is unquestionably visible, cover-ups will begin to crumble, governments begin to take more drastic measures to contain the people clamoring for solutions that do not exist. The times start getting tough for everyone. Question: How is the movement of observers and collaborators aliens? Only registered ships. We know of 320 of them circulating this week around here. Lunar bases are in an extremely busy, coming and going. Frankly speaking, the Earth is a planet that matters to many races, because of the rich biodiversity it harbors. Your huge moon, and the orbital distance from the Sun, makes the Earth an oasis, that is the basis for a large number of stellar colonization projects. Nobody can interfere with natural events, but everyone wants to see what will happen, and, if possible, collaborate, so that does not end becoming a barren place. Much of your biodiversity has already been transferred to a large number of planets, according to the characteristics of each, might harbor a few species. 182 planets shelter species transferred from planet Earth. If necessary, will be brought back to the planet to a new beginning. Wait for our next video. Thanks for watching. Join our channel. You are welcome there.